must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.
My name is Soma from the Ministry of Health and working under National Public Health Labs. Today we are visiting the quarantine sites within Nairobi, and the teams are being dispatched out to go and visit the sites. We have the forms which we are going to use to capture the information of the visitors who came from in the country. And we also have the sample collection apparatus, which we have the oropharyngeal swabs and the nasal swabs. And each person is supposed to be taken the 2 samples, the nasal swab and the oropharyngeal swab. We have our PPEs to protect ourselves. We have the safety gears where we are having this, and the disinfection for disinfecting the apparatus which we are going to use. The waste, we have the biohazard bags where we are going to put all the waste which is generated within the site where we are collecting the specimen. We have the biohazard bags to safeguard the environment. And with us we have the transport media, because we have to make sure that the samples which we are going to carry, they are if the virus is there, they are viable. So we have the transport media which we are carrying with us, and we are maintaining the cold chain, because we have the cool box which is equipped with the ice packs to maintain the cold chain of the virus of the samples as we come back. To my fellow Kenyans, I have a word for you today. Kindly stay at home. I am at work to safeguard the environment and to safeguard ourselves. The corona is real. It is real with us. So please let us stay at home as the health workers continue working and supporting the government or the guidelines which have been put on place.
In the case of China, small reforms have been going on all the time in the political system. We fix problems here and there. But I said, problem is the United States. Your political system was a product of pre-industrial era. And I made a forecast. I said, without significant, substantial political reform, my concern is, in your next elections, you will produce a leader worse off than George W. Bush.
That's
okay.
Yeah.
So it was you, it was not the Russians.
Yeah. So this is the Chinese humble advice we can offer. But China is a civilizational state. I remember when Henry Kissinger wrote his famous book on China, he started with this quote. He said, my goodness, look at this China. It's different. China uses this unique language, which started 3,500 years ago. It's 1,000 years earlier than ancient Greek, 1,005 years earlier than ancient Latin. But these 2 European languages were dead languages. Chinese are still using the same language. This line of culture and continuation of civilization, uninterrupted. So this is why we have, indeed, for instance, this whole idea of meritocracy. Why I say confident? I said with my debate with Professor Fukuyama, I said, if you look at the top leadership in China, we've just had the party's Congress, minimum requirement, 2 terms of provincial governor or similar position, which means you have to govern at least 100 million people, given the size of China, before you came to one of the top 7 positions, decision-making bodies. I said to Fukuyama, I said, with this Chinese methodology, meritocracy-based system, we can say with certainty, we can improve the system. There are problems, we can fix it. But we will not produce any leaders like George W. Bush. It's way below the Chinese bar. That's my point.
Good afternoon. A few minutes past noon here in Nairobi. Glad you're doing very well. Good morning. good evening, depending on where you're watching us from across the board today. It is the 4th of May 2020, another Monday and another week as we start looking at seeing how these cases, the numbers will, go, especially here in the continent. And speaking of the numbers, let's look at the latest statistics of how Africa stands in this COVID-19 war. My name is Miriam Mugutu. The show is DIASPORA Dispatches, and here we get to look at the news across the continent. So after I go through the statistics, then we shall look at the news making headlines across the continent this afternoon. And we start with Kenya, where confirmed cases right now is at 465. 24 people have died, 167 others have recovered. Comoros, the confirmed cases there is 3. Sao Tome and Principe, confirmed cases there have gone really up at 16. 1 person has died, 4 have recovered. And South Sudan, confirmed cases is 46. Uganda, confirmed cases is 89 and recoveries there is at 52. Tanzania, confirmed cases is 480. The death toll is 17, recoveries is at 167. And Central Africa, and for Tanzania, the figures were updated on Wednesday. The last time they were updated on Wednesday, so I'm sure now the numbers there might have gone up. And we shall look at Tanzania as we look at the African news just in a short while. And the Central African Republic, confirmed cases is 72, recoveries is 10. South Africa, confirmed cases is at 6,783. The death toll there is at 131, recoveries 2,549. Algeria, confirmed cases 4,474. The death toll is 463, recoveries is 1,936. And in Burundi, confirmed cases 15, 1 person has died, 7 have recovered. And in Tanzania, confirmed cases in Zimbabwe, confirmed cases is 34. The death toll there is 4 and recoveries is 5. And in Sudan, confirmed cases is 673. 41 people have died in Sudan, 61 have recovered. And in Egypt, confirmed cases is 6,465, 429 people have died, 1,549 have recovered. Morocco, 4,903 cases confirmed, 174 deaths, recoveries is 1,438. And Liberia, confirmed cases 158, 18 people died, and recoveries 58. And Chad, confirmed cases 117. 10 deaths have been reported, 39 recoveries. Burkina Faso, confirmed cases 662, 45 people have died, 540 others have recovered. And in Somalia, confirmed cases 722. The death toll there is at 32, recoveries are 44. And Gambia, confirmed cases 17, 1 person has died, 9 others have recovered. And in Cameroon, confirmed cases 2,777 and 2,077. The death toll in Cameroon is 64, and 953 recoveries have been made there in Cameroon. And we shall be looking at Cameroon in our African news there. And Senegal, confirmed cases 1,182. 9 people have died, 372 others have recovered. And in Ivory Coast, confirmed cases is at 1,275. 14 people have died, 525 others have recovered. And in Ghana, confirmed cases is 2,169. 18 people have died, 229 others have recovered. Mauritius, confirmed cases is at 332. 10 deaths, recoveries is at 315. Liberia, confirmed cases is at 2,558. 87 people have died, 400 others have recovered. DRC, confirmed cases 682. And 34 people have died, 80 others have recovered. Congo, Brazzaville, confirmed cases 229. 19 people have died, 25 have recovered. Rwanda, confirmed cases at 259. 124 recoveries, no death has been reported there from Rwanda and Madagascar, the land of where the solution lies in Africa with their COVID organic. And now confirmed cases in the country is at 149. I haven't seen an increase. I think yesterday they still had that number, and recoveries there have gone up at 98. And Zambia, confirmed cases at 124. 3 people have died and 78 others have recovered. Togo, confirmed cases is at 124. The death toll is 3, recoveries 78. And in in Togo, that was in Zambia, and also in Togo, 124 cases, 9 people have died and 67 others have recovered. Togo and Zambia has the same number of confirmed cases. Zambia also 124, except Zambia 3 people have died, and in Togo 9 people have died. Recoveries in Zambia are high, 78, and in Togo 67, and in Mali confirmed cases are 563. 37 people have died, 213 others have recovered, and in Niger confirmed cases 750. 36 people have died, 518 others have recovered. Ethiopia confirmed cases 135. 3 people have died, 75 others have recovered. Tunisia confirmed cases 1,013. 42 people have died, 328 others have recovered. And in Djibouti confirmed cases 1,112. 2 people have died, 686 others have recovered. In Guinea, confirmed cases 1,586. 7 people have died, recovery stands at 405. Equatorial Guinea, confirmed cases 315. 1 person has died, 9 have recovered. Gabon has 335 cases, 5 deaths and 85 recoveries. Libya, the cases there are 63, and for Libya it is grossly under-reported because, you know, the facilities there don't even work. The last hospital there that was really active was bombed about 2 weeks ago by Khalifa Haftar's forces there in Tripoli. So with Libya's cases a bit underreported, the same way we had thought Somalia cases had been underreported, until we see now the numbers there spike after, I think, the country and other organizations really increased the capacity in testing there and finding ways of carrying out testing there in Somalia. And so Libya's cases, they're still at 63. The death toll is 3, recoveries 22. Mozambique, confirmed cases 80, recoveries 19. And Seychelles, confirmed cases 11, recoveries 6. Sierra Leone, confirmed cases 166. 8 people have died and 29 others have recovered. And in Benin, confirmed cases 90, 2 deaths and 42 recoveries. Eritrea, confirmed cases 39 and recoveries there is 26, and Eritrea has not seen any death yet. And Guinea-Bissau, confirmed cases 257. 1 person has died, recoveries at 19. And Angola, confirmed cases 35 and the death toll there in Angola is 2. And recoveries is 11. And Africa, the statistics as they stood about nearly an hour ago as I prepared this to come here. So there are chances that these figures have really changed. Although what I've realized in Africa, the figures don't really change as much compared to a place like United States or Italy or, or these other countries that have really recorded high numbers there. So it is safe to say perhaps the numbers are still the same, or maybe they have changed just slightly. So the confirmed cases in the continent is 44,125. The death toll is 1,793. Recoveries is 14,538. Infected countries are 54, and 1 country is virus-free, and that is Lesotho. There were 2 for a very long time, Lesotho and Comoros Island, and Comoros registered its first cases, I think, on Saturday, and now they have 3 cases. And it's just on Friday here. I was reading the news where the government was fighting worshippers who were trying to access the mosque. It is the holy month of Ramadan, so they were trying to go and pray and do their prayers there, and the government had to literally remove them, because it had been put on a lockdown, although Comoros had not registered any cases. And now we see, perhaps due to people's irresponsible measures there, the country has reported 3 cases so far. So are we to see numbers in Comoros going up? That is something that we will be looking to see how that will play out in Comoros. And so the global statistics as they stand right now, confirmed cases is at 3,567,561. Confirmed cases today only is 3,872, and the death toll is at 248,346, representing a 6.96% of the total number of confirmed cases worldwide. And the death toll today only, the new death is 200. Critical cases 50,054, representing 2% of the number of total confirmed cases, and recoveries there is 1,157,275, representing 32.44%. I think the number of recoveries has continually been going up, so that is a very good thing. And the countries that have so far been affected worldwide is at 214 countries. I will not get into the details of these other countries across the globe. Or maybe the leading country in the world, that is the US, right now stands at 1,188,421. The death toll is 68,602, and recoveries in the US is 178,594. And yes, so the US now leads very much way ahead compared to any country in the world. It went and doubled and just crossed and just went. The US is on its own league when it comes to the leading cases, and even in the number of deaths. Even the country that is coming in at the second place are still very, very far comparing with the numbers there that have been recorded there in the US. So thank you so much. That is just a look at the statistics in some of African countries, majority, and some in the world, and where we stand right now. So a very good afternoon. So right now, let's just get into the African news, and we start with Tanzania, where videos of night burials have been circulating on social media in Tanzania, causing some to call into question the government's approach to the coronavirus pandemic. The footage shows the funerals taking place under tight security, with people wearing personal protective equipment and very few mourners in attendance. Opposition politicians and activists believe it may be part of a cover-up by the authorities, who have not been releasing regular updates on coronavirus. Unlike other countries, Tanzania has not opted for strict lockdown measures, although mass gatherings at funerals like weddings have been banned. And still in Tanzania, and the president of Tanzania, John Pombe Magufuli, is sending a plane to Madagascar to fetch a herbal tonic touted as a cure for COVID-19, even as World Health Organization warned there was no proof of any cure. Congo Brazzaville's president has also promised to import the drink. It is produced from Artemisia plant, the source of an ingredient used in malaria treatment. The World Health Organization also advised people against self-medicating. Alrighty then. And in East Africa's Lake Victoria, the continent's largest freshwater lake, has seen its shore rise to record levels, submerging businesses, homes, and threatening thousands of lives and livelihoods. In Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania, the rising waters have forced families to abandon their flooded homes. In Budalangi, Western Kenya, dozens of families have been left stranded on the swollen shores. Rising water continues to consume the remaining roads and bridges, as some now have to cross to safety in wooden dugout canoes, while others carry household items on their heads as they wade through knee-deep water. And I think we've had Dr. Matsanga talking about that. The lake is reclaiming back its spot there, and there has been some very heavy downpour of the rains in that part of the country, so that is why. And then we go to Nigeria, where the recent mass deaths reported in Nigeria's Kano state have been linked to coronavirus by the head of the Presidential Task Force, Nasiru Sani Gwarzo, told a journalist that samples taken from bodies that were yet to be buried turned positive. He said initial mapping showed that the virus may have spread as people visited the sick and attended burials. The mysterious deaths were first mentioned by grave diggers who noticed an increase in burials at the cemetery. The Kano state government initially linked the deaths to underlying medical conditions. The country has 2,558 confirmed cases of the virus, with Kano second leading in the number of cases after the commercial city of Lagos. And still on Nigeria, and Nigeria will from today, that is Monday, begin relaxing coronavirus lockdown measures in the capital Abuja and its biggest city Lagos, in an attempt to limit the damage to Africa's largest economy. The government says the reopening is the first phase of a 6-week process of easing the lockdown. It says the situation will be assessed in the next 2 weeks, and if things go well, the lockdown will be further relaxed. Even Italy, that went into a lockdown much earlier, is still very careful in how it is lifting some of these measures. And Nigeria, Miss Jane Come Lately, is already in a rush to open up to lift some of these measures, and yet we see a lot of deaths being reported in a state like Kano. And this is something that we shall look at once I'm through with just going through the news across the continent. And we go to Somalia, where the National Union of Somali Journalists has called on the government to stop harassing and intimidating journalists. In a statement to mark World Press Freedom Day, the union says journalists in Somalia are working in a climate of extreme fear with brutal physical assaults and malicious arrest. It says in recent weeks, journalists have been on trial on trumped-up charges in order to silence them, those seen as critics of the authorities. And then we move to Eritrea, where the president of Eritrea has flown to neighboring Ethiopia. He did that yesterday for what officials say are talks about coronavirus and the locust infestation that has been destroying crops in the region. Isaias Afwerki's arrival in Addis Ababa comes after a prolonged period when he had not been seen in public at all, which prompted speculation about the state of his health. It is not clear why the Eritrean leader chose to travel when most other meetings in the region have been conducted via video conferencing. Afwerki is just one character, and we shall talk about that. And we go to South Africa. And South Africa's largest, the Africa's largest mobile operator, MTN, has asked a court in the U.S. to dismiss a case which accuses the company of breaking anti-terrorist legislation in its business in Afghanistan. The lawsuit, lodged by families of American military personnel and civilians who were killed in Afghanistan, alleges that MTN and other companies supported the Islamist militants by making payments to ensure their infrastructure was protected. MTN is one of 6 companies from which the families are seeking compensation, but the South African telecoms firm says the case should be withdrawn because the American court has no jurisdiction, as MTN does not operate in the U.S. It also says the complaint does not allege any conduct that would have violated the Anti-Terrorism Act. And we go to Zimbabwe, where the country has granted clemency to more prisoners, broadening the conditions for release in the wake of the coronavirus pandemic. According to a government notice, those who are facing life sentences and who have been serving at least 20 years of what that sentence could be released. Some 1,500 prisoners were released in March, but prisons remain overcrowded with a total of 20,000 inmates against a capacity of 17,000. The amnesty frees all female prisoners, save those convicted for violent crimes. All juveniles and the terminally ill will also be released. And we go to Botswana, where the government of Botswana has issued legislation that makes it compulsory to wear masks or face coverings in public places, businesses, and common areas of residential buildings starting last week, 1st of May 2020. Speculations have been issued in an official media release stating that medical and non-medical masks needed to be worn by members of the public, while the medical versions are to be used by persons working in high-risk areas. Others have to wear the non-medical type. Now, and then we move to Guinea-Bissau, where Guinea-Bissau received a consignment of COVID organics, the Malagasy herbal tea. Wait, is it a herbal tea now or what? What? Is it a herbal tea or some medication? What? Okay, the Malagasy herbal tea, touted as having preventative and curative abilities for the COVID-19. And a government delegation returned to Bissau with the medication after receiving the consignment in Antananarivo on May 1st. It was received by President Umaro Sissoco Embalo. The president said at the ceremony the donation part of the fight against the global pandemic called COVID-19. He's quoting him, said, "I would like to say that with this, Guinea-Bissau will be seen as different kind of nation." All right, and I think we should talk about this COVID organics from Malagasy. Yeah, we should talk about it. And in Ivory Coast, an Ivorian traditional group based in the southeast of West African nation held a special, listen, Africans, held a special exorcism ceremony recently, seeking divine intervention to protect its population of 3 million people against the coronavirus epidemic. Now, the chief of Sanwi, in speaking at the ceremony, alluded to divine instructions underlying the pandemic because science cannot fix everything. It just can't. That is what he said. Take, for example, the virus, this little virus that we don't see that silences everybody. And now, of course, they're there trying to get a solution by exorcism. Yeah, they're trying to exorcise COVID-19 from the world. Okay. And still in Ivory Coast, and Ivorian Prime Minister Amadou Gon Coulibaly is in France for medical checks. The government announced on Saturday at an official statement he arrived in Paris same day. Now, in his state, Defense Minister Hamed Bakayoko will act as Prime Minister, and the statement did not specify when he will be returning to the country. Coulibaly is a top official of the government and is in line to succeed outgoing President Alassane Ouattara. In mid-March, he was elected by ruling party to take over from Ouattara, who leaves office after polls scheduled for October 2020. Coulibaly is a close ally of Ouattara and has held the prime minister portfolio since 2017. The news of his medical leave has sparked some backlash, especially on social media. It thrusts to the fore the debate about how African politicians abandon health systems to seek medical care in Europe. And we go to Cameroon, where Cameroonian journalists are marked World Press Freedom Day yesterday with protests against abuse from the government as well as from rebels fighting for an independent English-speaking state. Reporters Without Borders, in its 2020 World Press Freedom Index, ranks Cameroon at number 134th out of the 180 countries in the World Press Freedom Index. Some Cameroonian journalists have been detained for their reporting or on the run from the military, or they're saying they're also running from Amazonians. Come on, what's happening there in Cameroon? And this message from the Cameroonian Association of English-Speaking Journalists that journalism has rules, regulations, and professional ethics was broadcasted live on television and radio there in Cameroon. And then we move to South Sudan, where the South Sudan Doctors Union is concerned over reports that people with the coronavirus are not being placed under a government-controlled quarantine. The union says it is shocked to learn that several cases have been detected in the residential areas due to lack of health care facilities. South Sudan has recorded 46 confirmed cases of the virus. Currently, there is only one designated quarantine facility with 24 beds. It is being upgraded to 100-bed capacity. South Sudan had all the time in the world. It is one of the countries that recorded their first cases a bit late compared to some of us. And they did not take any measures, the leadership of South Sudan. Okay. But there are concerns that more patients are living within the communities. Last week, the government's task force told those affected by the virus to self-isolate, and advised them not to mingle with the community. Are you serious? And also still in South Sudan, the Ministry of Health has warned all private health facilities against conducting testing and accommodating coronavirus patients. This comes after the government revealed that some private clinics, mainly in the capital Juba, are offering coronavirus services without authorization. South Sudan currently has 46 cases, as I have said there earlier. And that marks the end of our news this morning. So now can we just talk about some of this information and some of this news that I just read there? Very interesting. Ombesh Arthur, you're saying tropical medicine testing? Yes, apparently World Health Organization will not agree for the COVID organic there from Madagascar to be used. They have not authorized, they have not given the go-ahead. They are saying it has not been tested, so I don't know how you test this. I know, I'm just wondering the same as you were, Ombesh Arthur. Thank you there, and Chukso Biakor, thank you for joining. You're watching us from Biafra land, and Gatidel Rajok, you're saying you're watching from Juba capital. How is Juba? And please, I've just that last news there. Let's talk about it. Gatidel, now that you're here, tell me what is happening there in South Sudan. Why is it that the government of South Sudan, only the quarantine facility by the government only has 24 beds? And as far as I am concerned, South Sudan is one of the countries that recorded their first cases a bit late compared to a lot of other countries in the continent. So they had, you would imagine, all the time in the world to even call for help and donations and all of that to ensure they put up facilities just in case. Because in Kenya here, even before we reported our first case, we had already a couple of centers. The first one at Mbagathi, which had over 100 beds, and then it has continued, and we've seen a couple of other counties also having the same facilities for designated for the treatment and for the quarantine measures there for COVID-19. So how is it that in South Sudan right now we have 46 cases that have been confirmed? The capacity there is 24. What was the government of South Sudan doing? Where was their focus? This team that is led by Dr. Riek Machar, what were they doing all this time before COVID ever arrived in South Sudan? And now it's when they're working on upgrading this facility to a 100-bed facility. Why didn't they do that? It is better to be prepared than to be sorry, because assuming these cases should spike, because now these are just the initial cases there in South Sudan, assuming, God forbid, and I pray this does not even become the case, that these numbers in South Sudan increase, as we have seen happen in South Sudan, as we have seen happen in Sudan. So what will happen there for the people in South Sudan? Because it has now been established that some of these infections are down in the communities away from Juba, because this facility is in Juba. It's not even down there in other states in the communities. So what was the government of South Sudan doing? Why is there a lack of unpreparedness? Because this thing, it was just a matter of time. And I know South Sudan tried to close its borders, but you never know. This thing, as long as it has sneaked in with one person, you don't know how far it can go in terms of the spread. So why was the government of South Sudan not doing enough? The people from South Sudan, perhaps you can help me out in understanding why, after all this time, there are only 24 beds there in South Sudan in the official quarantine facility. I'm just trying to wrap my mind around this, and I cannot understand. So now the South Sudan's Doctors Union is concerned over these reports that people with the coronavirus are not being placed under government-controlled quarantine. So these people already have tested positive for coronavirus. And then after they've tested positive for coronavirus, what the government is telling them now, go self-isolate. Tell me how many people have the capacity or the space of or a big house or whatever it is that you can actually self-isolate from your children, from your wife, from your husband. For basically just find a place that you sit and you're okay, and you don't mingle with anybody from outside, and you'll be safe. What level of careless behavior is this from the government of South Sudan there? And how do they test you and find you to have a positive, tested positive for coronavirus, and they send you to self-isolate? I do not understand. And then you're advised not to mingle with the community. Have they not seen some of these cases, and how, some people have been behaving very badly in this age of the coronavirus? And because of such behaviors, very careless behaviors, the numbers have really spiked in a lot of countries. South Sudan has not learned anything from a country like the United States. South Sudan has not learned anything from a country like Italy, which initially it was not very, it was very relaxed. And then, but after the numbers spiked, they went into a full, emergency mode as a country. South Sudan hasn't learned anything from a country like the UK, which also people there are not paying attention. You cannot test somebody for coronavirus and they've tested positive, and then you tell them, now go home and self-isolate. Are you serious? How many people have even that space to do that? So this is very unpractical, and I'm just praying that we don't see the numbers in South Sudan surge farther than they are right now. The country has reported 46 cases there in South Sudan. And so another news item really that I'll keep talking about until something is done. maybe we see some changes. That is in Tanzania. And, you know, I don't know if you've seen that video of President Pombe Magufuli making headlines, you know, saying that, you know, I will not close down Dar es Salaam. I will not close down this and this city and so on and so forth. And so now what we're seeing, there has been some videos out there showing that there has been some burials taking place at night. And remember, yesterday, if you were watching the Africa Showdown in the afternoon here, we also talked about Tanzania. And now World Health Organization is accusing Tanzania of one, not cooperating because every other country is releasing their data on a daily basis. Tanzania has refused to do that. And also, the two things. I think it was lack of cooperation, and the other one is lack of transparency. They're not cooperating, and they're not issuing, I don't know, the right information, I suppose, or something like that. So the World Health Organization was accusing Tanzania. And now, of course, Tanzania's President Pombe Magufuli has been very adamant in his ways and how he has been dealing with the COVID-19 in Tanzania. He has been criticized so much. And right now, the videos are emerging now from Tanzania because the last time we got an update from Tanzania was on Wednesday last week, where the cases there went from, I don't know, 300 and something to 480, and we've not had any more briefings from Tanzania in regards to the numbers when it comes to COVID-19. And President Magufuli was seen to be saying, you know, these numbers are doctored. What do you mean these numbers are doctored? And yet it is your Prime Minister who is coming out, who led the press conference giving out these numbers. And also these footages now show funeral services being done at night, not even services, just, burials being done at night in very under tight security with people wearing, personal protective equipment and very few mourners in attendance to suggest that some of these people might have died from COVID-19. So the information, so this could play into these allegations by World Health Organization that Tanzania is not very transparent about their figures and what is happening there in that country. And also Tanzania is not cooperating when you see people sharing these footages online. And so President Pombe Magufuli there, I don't know what other excuse he'll come up with. I have no problem with the president of Tanzania, but in how he has been handling this matter of COVID-19 in that country, it leaves a lot to be desired, and perhaps a lot of these deaths that are now happening and are being, the burials are being made at night. If Tanzania's president had taken this a bit more carefully, then perhaps we would not be seeing a lot of this would have been averted. And still in Tanzania, and Magufuli seems to be one of the few Africa head of states that is now saying they have no problem trying that medication from Madagascar, and he's saying he will send a plane to fetch a herbal tonic. I don't know why they're calling it a herbal tonic. Yes, Madagascar calls it COVID organic. So Tanzania president says he will send a plane there to bring the organic to Tanzania. As even as he tries to do this, a World Health Organization has warned there's no proof of any cure from COVID-19, which is very interesting. I don't know if World Health Organization has even cared to even take a look, to even try to even test. I don't know. Somebody asked there, how do you test a herbal remedy there? I guess you have to take it through some tests for you to know really it works or not, right? Niall Gatquoth Achung, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. You're saying the situation is terrible. I tell you, I guess the situation in South Sudan, President Salva Kiir, I believe, had an opportunity to prepare appropriately, but as it was expected, nothing much has been done there. And Joseph Otto, you're saying, Miriam, don't even ask the Minister of Health in South Sudan about what is happening there. Even the minister cannot pronounce the virus. Stop. And how can you have control on something you can't even explain? Well, the coronavirus, sometimes, I don't mind that he cannot pronounce the coronavirus. I just have a problem with how the Minister of Health is handling this matter on coronavirus there in South Sudan. And for them to say that now you've been tested for COVID-19 and you have tested positive, now go home and self-isolate. What kind of nonsense is that? How does that even work? And then you're telling people keep away from the communities. Perhaps they live in one-roomed hut, right? And you want them to go self-isolate where? In the field, somewhere in the forest, in the bushes? And why is the whole of South Sudan only has 24 beds in the official quarantine center, which is only in one place? What about the rest of the states? Come on now, President Salva Kiir. You know, he had enough time to even seek for help. We understand right now South Sudan is going through a lot of difficulties. You know, after signing of the peace deal in February, coronavirus was here with us. So they really did not have enough time to do much, and there's a bit of a challenge with that. But still, I'm sure there's still people out there of goodwill who, if he would have asked enough help in terms of preparedness, they would have been happy to help the people of South Sudan. And also some monies have been given to South Sudan. Why are we only having 24-bed capacity in the official quarantine centers? And then now the cases there is at 46. The rest of the people, you're telling them to go home and self-isolate. Just stop it. And on the matter of Tanzania, so as I said, their President Pombe Magufuli has said Tanzania is willing to try this medicine from Madagascar. I call the COVID organic there, and believes that might, help in curing, or rather not curing, because you cannot cure a virus, but in people getting better there and recovering from this COVID-19. All right, so let's just see. Tanzania together with Congo Brazzaville, and the president of Congo Brazzaville. Do I have the figures for Congo Brazzaville? I think I do, but I can't get it. I'd like to see the numbers there. I read so much of those. Yeah, Congo Brazzaville, they have 229 cases. 9 people have died and 25 others have recovered. So, all right, it's good to try. And President of Congo Brazzaville said that he promised to import the drink. It is produced from the Artemisia plant, as I said there earlier, the source of an ingredient used in malaria treatment. And when the World Health Organization heard about that, he said, no, people, you shouldn't self-medicate. So let's see how that will play out there. And right now, everybody in the world is just trying to find a solution. So Madagascar is on the right path here in the continent, and we should support it. President Uhuru Kenyatta, get us some of that, and let the people who have been affected try it and see. There's no harm in trying. It's a herbal medication. I mean, there's no harm in trying. Whichever place we can get the solution, let's just try whatever it is that can work for us. Now, there have been recent deaths that have happened in Nigeria, and a lot of our viewers have been trying to bring our attention to this. And I think we've gone through this sometimes back last week about the mysterious deaths that happened in Kano State. And now the recent mass deaths reported in Nigeria's Kano State have been linked to coronavirus by the head of the Presidential Task Force. Now, Nasiru Sani told journalists that samples taken from bodies that were yet to be buried turned positive. Really? So he said initial mapping showed that the virus may have spread as people visited the sick and attended burials. Why? Why are people still visiting the sick? Why are people still attending burials in Nigeria? Now, these mysterious deaths were first mentioned by grave diggers who noticed an increase in burials at the cemetery. So it is the undertakers who said, no, wait a minute, we are burying more people than usual. Where were the local health officials in the Kano State in Nigeria? Where was the Ministry of Health? Why is the undertakers who are the ones who are raising alarm? What is really happening here? Now, the Kano State government initially linked the deaths to underlying medical conditions. Which one now? And the country has about close to about 2,588 and 558 confirmed cases of the virus, and with Kano the second leading in the number of cases after the commercial city of Lagos. Now, I really don't understand, and even as we speak today, the government there on Monday, Nigeria will lift some of the lockdown measures in Lagos in an attempt to limit the damage of Africa's largest economy. Why is Nigeria so much concerned about its economy? And I know we all are, a lot of countries are, because this has had a huge effect. But if you're continuing to record rather a big number of people dying and a number of infections going up. Just the other day, I was reading a story on the BBC where some health workers there in Nigeria have really suffered and have been affected, and a good number of them have even died after contracting the COVID-19. Why is the government of Nigeria lifting the sanctions now on Lagos? And the second thing, this story in Kano State, why is it not adding up? Where is the local, the Ministry of Health officials there in Nigeria that did not notice an absurd number of people dying from that state, and people have been buried? I was just watching the images from that cemetery, and it is the grave diggers, the undertakers, who actually raised their concerns, who are saying, no, wait a minute, we've been burying more people here than usual. The undertakers are the ones who noticed we have a problem here. Listen, where were the officials of the Ministry of Health in Nigeria? And Kano already had reported a good number of infections. What was the government doing? Because right now we see in Kenya, in areas where infections have been recorded, especially who contribute to a huge percentage, that is Nairobi and in Mombasa. And Mombasa right now, I think the government of Kenya should take very, very keen interest in trying to put measures that will ensure the spread of the COVID-19 is put under control, because otherwise residents there, a lot of them are just hot-headed. They are not very keen on following the things that the government has put in place at the Ministry of Health. And we've seen their governor, Mr. Hassan Joho, just coming out the other day when he was having this press conference. He was expressing his frustration with the people there of Mombasa, who are not very stubborn. They're not listening and paying attention to some of these things the government has put in place. And so perhaps the government is just studying the situation, and if deemed necessary, maybe some other measures might be put in place there to ensure the people of Mombasa are safe, and for those who have the virus can go and get treated. But here in Nigeria, I'm just wondering, where are the Ministry of Health officials in the state of Kano, which already had recorded some good numbers there of infections, and yet they did not. There has been a lot of deaths, some mysterious deaths. Now, what do you mean, mysterious deaths? And yet people are sick. Where is the awareness? Why is the government not creating enough awareness to tell people when a person is sick, when you don't even know what they're suffering from, please don't go visit the sick. If a person has died, please not attend these burials, because in Kenya we were told from the start, only close family members can attend a burial, and the maximum of people allowed is 15. But we've seen these are not the measures and that has been put in place here in Nigeria. So a lot of people have continued to die in Kano State, and to even think that it is the grave diggers, they're the undertakers who's actually raised the concern. I don't know what President Buhari there and his administration are doing. Are they even doing enough there to ensure that Nigerians are safe, or measures have been put in place? Kindly let me know your thoughts on this story. Let me just read a few of your comments there. And Joseph Otto, you're saying all eyes on Madagascar. Kudos there. And Joseph, you've been campaigning really for the COVID organic, this medication, herbal medication. Somebody called it herbal tea, and I was like, no, it cannot be herbal tea. Let's just even call it herbal remedy, because now you're reducing it to, some tea. No. So this COVID-19 organic, as President Rajulina has branded it, might be a solution to the rest of the world. And Joseph, I've realized you've been really campaigning for Africa to even try this COVID, organic. And President Magufuli has said, you know what? Yeah, I'll try it. And also President of Congo Brazzaville there has said that he's willing. He's ordering some actually today, and they will be arriving, and we've seen there. So we shall be following and see how this will work for those countries, and perhaps more African countries should order for this COVID organic. Gatdel Rajok You're saying, the South Sudan, it has been at war for almost 67 years. We don't have secondary healthcare. We only have primary healthcare, which is not doing enough to the citizens like the rest of our neighbors' countries. They have secondary healthcare systems in terms of equipment. As we talk now, the number of people who have been affected by COVID-19 are increasing on a daily. Now we have 49 patients. All right. And I agree with you. Thank you so much, Pajok. It's Pajok. Thank you so much for writing to us this afternoon. And I totally agree with you. South Sudan has been at war for that many years. So just immediately after the country received its independence in 2011, 2 years while they're still setting structures on how to build a country, because they're building a country from literally scratch, yeah? Because even after that, even before that, there was years of wars and all that. So South Sudan was just starting now to build itself up. And before you know it, the country was plunged into a civil war in 2013, just 2 years before they could lay down the structures there, proper structures there, and facilities and infrastructure and all that is required for a normal, fast-moving country, right? So I understand there's a lack in the healthcare systems, facilities, and all of that, and I'm with you on that. My problem here is just a little bit. President Salva Kiir and Riek Machar, while the rest of the world was preparing and just putting measures in place just in case the COVID-19, because it was not a matter of will it was just a matter of when. All right, because of the nature of the coronavirus. So countries, even Kenya, we took measures. And I know Kenya, we are more advantaged compared to South Sudan. I agree with you totally. But I'm sure that if South Sudan's leadership had this as a priority, they would have received helps. All you need is a bed and some open room somewhere. They would have. Even when there's a will, there's always a way. But their lack of preparedness, while the rest of Africa and the rest of the world were putting in measures to prepare for when COVID-19 arrives in their countries, what South Sudan leadership was doing was fighting over ministerial positions, was fighting over things, was trying to finalize the peace deal, that came in, after they were coerced into signing that peace deal and agreeing on working together. And then after that, we went into the boundary war. The number of states took us a whole lot of time before they were able to sign. So that was done with. And now they came into fighting over positions, so that while the rest of the world was preparing, South Sudan was preoccupied with the position and the politics of it. So that costed South Sudan the time they would have had in preparing for the COVID-19. So in South Sudan, as much as they are uniquely placed in terms of where it is right now as a country, but also it is the weak leadership. We have to call it as it is. It is the weak leadership of South Sudan. Leaders who have no priority in terms of serving the country and serving the people of that country. That is not where the priorities are. That is not where the heart of why they want to serve South Sudan is. So they lack that. They don't have that. Serving what South Sudan and its people is not something that comes first for them. And they have proved that, both sides, President Salva Kiir and Riek Machar and the rest of them. We have seen that. Nobody really has the heart of South Sudan in them. All right, so they had an ample time to prepare, to ask for help, and they were given some money to prepare. So this money that was given to prepare was supposed to go in getting more beds, making makeshift, places just in case, but they did not do that. So as much as there has been a war and South Sudan is just now, perhaps now in the path of stability, and I pray that is where all their attention is right now. But they also had enough time to prepare, and they did not do that. So on this, I still blame the leadership of South Sudan. Why are we only having 24 beds? Why are we only having one facility in Juba? What will happen in other communities where this virus now is there? You're telling them to self-isolate where not everybody lives in a 9-bedroom house. I think these leaders don't even understand. not everybody can afford it, especially the majority there in South Sudan. They cannot afford to self-isolate. You test them, they test positive for COVID-19, and then you send them home to self-isolate. Who does that? I've not even heard that anywhere in the world. So, Joseph, you're saying, Miriam, I saw the president of Tanzania saying that they tested some samples of things for COVID-19 purpose. Jackfruits and sheep blood samples were tested positive. I laughed. I'm telling you, President Magufuli on this one, he's ridiculous. You know, it's just beyond ridiculous. He's becoming another Trump here in Africa. We don't need that. And so, another thing that happened over the weekend that we have to talk about. Oh no, let's look at this Ivory Coast Prime Minister, who even in the middle of a crisis here in the world, he was sick, and guess where he went? He took a flight and went for treatment in France, and that is what we were talking about here last week, sometimes back last week, when President of Ghana, Kufu Nana Addo, came out and said, you know what? I think now I've just discovered that Ghana does not have enough health facilities, so I'm looking to build 90 more health centers in Ghana, and also he did not promise to rehabilitate the ones that already are existing and in completely bad state. He did not promise to do that, but he said he'll build more health facilities in Ghana. So COVID-19 all of a sudden opened his mind to seeing the dilapidated situation in the public health sector there in Ghana, which is quite sad as an Africa, because a lot of our leaders they'll go out and seek medical treatment, so they're usually out of touch with the infrastructure in our country, in the different countries that they're leading there. So now we see Ivorian Prime Minister Amadou Coulibaly went all the way to France yesterday. At their flight still going to France right now, or he's chartered a private plane. He went to France to seek for treatment. In the middle of the COVID-19, he went to France to seek for treatment there. So there's no saying when he will return, but he left. No, he went on Saturday to get his treatment on Saturday. And that has been the problem with our leadership. And you wonder how we find ourselves with very poor, health facilities and infrastructure here in Africa, because our leaders, they always have a plan A. Their plan A is not their country. Their plan A is outside the country, and the plan B and C and D, that is where they go and seek their treatment. It's not like us here, the citizens, the poor citizens who cannot afford to move out of the country to get their treatment. So he went, and it's a shame, especially, even Ivorians, were not very happy with this matter, and the news of his medical leave has sparked some backlash, especially on social media, from the people of that country, and they're saying, this thrusts to the fore the debate about how African politicians abandon their already abandoned health systems to seek medical care in Europe. What a shame. And we're here saying that as Africans, we have been independent for how many? Over 60 years. It is a shame. It is a shame. It is a shame. It is indeed a shame. And we should call them. You should call them out and demand that they improve the health facilities in our countries. That is what Ivorians should do to this Prime Minister. And also this meeting that happened in Ethiopia, President Isaias Afwerki of Eritrea went to Ethiopia for a meeting. Who right now goes to another country and has a meeting in the wake of COVID-19? I do not understand why. This about locust and the coronavirus, why can't we have these conversations on teleconferencing, on Zoom, on these other technological platforms that people are now having, meetings at? We've seen SADC members, we've seen European Union members, states, heads of states there, meeting and having conversations through the internet. Nobody now takes a flight and goes to another country for an official head of state meeting. So this meeting here that happened in Ethiopia, President Isaias Afwerki flew to Ethiopia to meet with the Prime Minister there, Abiy Ahmed to talk about coronavirus and locust and also leadership in the region. Who's even thinking about leadership in the region where we are in the middle of a crisis right now? So it's very interesting there, and I don't know what would have advised such unnecessary a meeting. I don't think it was necessary for President Isaias Afwerki to visit Ethiopia at all. So thank you so much. This has been Diaspora Dispatches, where we've been looking at news across the continent. My name is Miriam Ogutu. Good afternoon.
Peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.